we are doing a Facebook Live class tonight on spring migration and those beautiful birds that we're all so eager to have come to our backyard and to our parks. The program that we've been using so successfully the last several Q&A sessions decided not to work tonight. So we've had to go to plan B. But I'm afraid that the pictures may not be quite as crisp and clear as they would have if that program had worked properly. But we're going to give it a go. And how we envision this going is I'm going to give you, you are my audience, you are my garden club, you are my Missouri Master Naturalist, whoever I've presented this program to in the past. You're my audience. And when I do programs, I like people to ask questions. So obviously you can't raise your hand and we see you, but Melanie's going to be manning the camera for questions. So you guys, please let us know you're on the air. Say hi or whatever, and let me know you're on there. And when I'm talking, if I say something that you want to ask a question about, type it in, and Melanie will get it to me, and we will talk about it rather than putting it off too long, and then we all forget about it. So, feel free to ask questions. But today's program is about spring migration, and that is we're in the full swing of. And people always have questions, the basic questions about spring migration. So I thought what we would do, we would cover, why migrate, and then of course the birds that we are already kind of all here, this early spring migrant arrivals, and those that are on the way. So what we've got to do is we're going to turn the camera to the big computer monitor that we have here, and so hopefully the images will be big enough and clear enough for you to be able to see. So Melanie's going to turn that around.
And we have Beth is here, Beth Branch, and Ruth.
Hi, Beth. Hi, Ruth.
Okay, guys, we're playing with this camera, so let us know if you can see that. I'm going to try to get a little bit. Let me put the monitor this way just a little bit.
This way?
Yeah, can you guys see that okay? Brian Voorhees is here.
Hi, Brian.
It says we have 11 people. And Melissa is here. Brian. Hi, Brian. Does it look okay, Brian? Ruth, somebody tell me. I can't tell if how the pictures look. I'm getting some hearts, so I'd say let's go. Carrie's there. Hi, Carrie. They're saying yes, it looks good.
Okay, you can see that. Okay. All right, so I'm going to be off camera. Can you hear me okay from where I am? I'm kind of having to sit kind of to the side of the camera. Can everybody hear me all right?
Yes, I can see it. Looks good. Looks fine. We're just sitting close.
Right,
okay.
exactly.
Yeah, okay.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us. This is the program is Spring Migration, and the bird on the cover there is one of our early spring migrants that we saw several of yesterday out at Cooley Lake Conservation Area. This is a beautiful tree swallow. They are named that because they nest in cavities in trees. They're beautiful birds. But they are one of our pretty early migrants, and I thought this was a nice slide to start with. But the first in the burning question is.
They want me to go closer.
Okay, all right.
So
we'll keep adjusting until you.
Okay.
Right. Now try not to bump the tripod. Do you need to refocus on it?
No, it seems good.
Okay. Why do birds migrate? There are several different reasons, but in college we learned the official definition of migration is a patterned movement to breed or feed. Was the short and simple way to answer that on a test. And we had examples in the fish world of fish that literally their daily migration may be 8 inches in the water. They may migrate up 8 inches toward the surface to feed at sunset, and then when the sun got bright, they would migrate back down to the 8 inches into the water. So migration can be a very small amount, and some it can be a very large amount. This is a fledgling great horned owl, and of course this is an illustration of the breeding part of that. And then there are those that migrate obviously because they are not going to have any of their food source available to them on their where they live at least part of the year. The red-throated hummingbird is a prime example. It feeds primarily on nectar and small insects, and of course come late the fall time, the flowers all die, and this bird would not have anything to eat, a dependable food source. Many of, well, I hit that twice evidently. A lot of shorebirds have to migrate because the water freezes over in the shallow waters where they can get to. So it wouldn't be able to catch that frog somewhere. The house wren, which is our neighborhood bird of ours that migrates south, and of course it eats almost exclusively insects. And in the winter we don't have any insects. So where do they go, and why do they risk the journey? This is a black and white warbler that collided with a window, and migration is an extremely taxing journey on your body. It is a very dangerous journey for lots of reasons. One, storms, wind patterns, predators, guy wires, windows, airplane engines, all kinds of things are dangerous when you journey. And one of the most, of course, the dangerous things of all is you leave an area you're familiar with and you migrate, several hundred miles, if not 1,000 miles or more, to the south, to wherever you, and you don't know where you're going. And so when you land, you don't know where cover is, you don't know where food is, you don't know where water is. So it's a very, very dangerous journey, and a lot of birds die that successfully hatch and fledge here in our area, but they die during migration. They never make it back. So it must be important enough for them to make that that trip. And most of our migrants, classic migrants, are neotropic migrants. That is, they go to the tropical regions of our planet, which is just to the north and the south of the equator. Some go further, and some go shorter distances. And then, but that begs the question: why not just stay there? I mean, if the tropics are so wonderful, and there are lots of flowering plants and lots of fruiting plants and tons of insects there, why not just stay? Why come all the way back up north here to have your young, to lay your eggs, build your nest, and things like that? Well, the truth is rich as the tropics are, they have their resident birds, like we have our resident birds, and these migrants that spend the winter down there, if they all tried to nest there, there would not be enough food to go around to feed all those babies from our birds and the birds that live there. It would overtax that ecosystem. So what most birds do, and they time their migrations back north to their breeding grounds, they time their migration, their arrival, and their nest building to the proliferation of the insects that are most important to them, and the insects that their young are going to benefit most from. So if you are a bird that nests in the top of a tree, like an oak tree, they primarily probably feed on insects that are native to oak trees. So when their babies hatch, they can gather a lot of those oak tree insects and feed it to their babies, and there you can bet that the explosion of those insects coincides a lot of the time right with their hatching time of their babies. They've done it for a millennial, and they are obviously trying to time it so that their babies will have the most food. So when we think about our early arrivals, and how many times have I said, we have robins that overwinter here, and people don't think so. And, oh, okay. Sorry, Melanie was plugging in the phone. The battery's running low. So, okay, a lot of our early arrivals, or earliest arrivals, are birds that do not go very far south. Robins are a prime example of that. Robins in our area, we have lots of nesting robins. And in some winters, we have a tremendous number of robins that overwinter here, and a lot of those are from points much further north. And like this robin eating on this berry here, this winter we had a lot of fruiting bodies, a lot of soft mass, as we call it, and a lot of robins in the area. But we still have a lot of robins that go further south, and they do start coming back in good numbers pretty early in the season. But they're not the only ones that we consider early arrivals. The brown-headed cowbirds have been arriving here now for the last 2 to 3 weeks. I'm seeing a lot of those lately. Red-winged blackbirds have truly invaded. As a matter of fact, the females are just now starting to come in. The males, in the migration world, a lot of the times, the males migrate first, and that is so they can get on their breeding grounds early and establish territories, nesting territories, and battle with the other males, so that when the females arrive, they can start singing and doing their courtship dances and things that they do to attract the females.
I have to plug it in over there because I don't think it's charging against the wall.
Okay. And the killdeer, which have just really started showing up in the last week or two, we're hearing them in the parking lot at the store. We had them at Cooley Lake yesterday. They're a shorebird that has adapted and evolved in grasslands, and they do go south, but they only go as far south as they have to be able to find open pasture and the food, some insects down south. Because in a very mild winter here, we do get insects production, and just to the further south of us, a lot of them have insects all year long. In North Carolina, we used to get bit by mosquitoes in February out on the coast, so there are some insects available, but not enough. I mean, people jump to the conclusion, they're like, well, I just got bit by a mosquito, the birds will be fine, there's plenty of food. Well, that's not a dependable source of food. Just like the weather turned last night and going to turn tonight, that's why birds and their timing of their nesting have to be sure that there's going to be enough insects available to feed those babies. So they have to take caution when it comes to building their nest. Now, one of the most favored migration birds that are coming back into the area for homeowners or landlords are the purple martins. They absolutely love. The purple martin landlord loves his purple martins, and they are colony nesters. They are very social birds, and you don't ever find just one purple martin nest. There's always clusters, and the old. To clarify a little bit about martins, March 10th is the average return date for the oldest adult male martins. And they are like that, watching the Wild Kingdom and those things all those years. You always have that male elk that ruts with as many females as he can, and he dominates and fights, and he doesn't eat anything. And so by the time, winter comes around, he's too weak to survive the winter, but he has passed on his progeny. Well, the scouts, the adult martins, are a bit like that. They come back super early to get the primo nesting sites picked out. And so when the younger males come in, the adult males, the scouts have already got the best nesting sites. So those adult males risk coming back too early. Whenever we get cold snaps of weather like this and there's not any flying insects for them, if it is a prolonged period of really cold weather, then we'll find dead male purple martins in the nest boxes and things because they starve to death. I know a lot of people try lots of things to help them. We have one customer who buys tubes of crickets, and he's trained the martins he shoots the crickets up with slingshots into the air, and the martins catch them out of midair. So people do a lot of things to help those purple martins survive those cold stretches. But the females, who look very different from the males, are just now starting to arrive. I bet you they'll filter in, and the sub-adult males will filter in over the next month. And like I said, I know John and I put up a purple martin house on June 1st one year for a customer, and on June 2nd they were laying eggs in the box. They were built that nest that quick. So you don't have to have your martin house up by March 10th. Now if you're a long-time landlord and your birds return back to your house every year, and they're going to be there March 10th, yes, those are the ones who need to have their boxes ready and open. If you're a first-time landlord, you hardly ever get adult males. in your box. Usually you get subadult males that that are looking for a new house, and you've got well until, like I said, the early June to get a martin house up. So they are one of the most popular birds in North America. Oh, another that we're all looking forward to is the ruby-throated hummingbird. This is a male. The males have the red throat, the white chest and belly, and the beautiful green back. Now the females look a lot like the male, except they don't have the red throat. And they, of course, need to time their arrival with blooming, lots of flowers. And historically, before we were, there's lots of non-native landscaping and a lot of plants out there now. But before settlement, they had to, depend on their arrival depended on, some of the early native plants that bloom, like the yellow buckeye, a small tree that blooms along creeks and things like that, were very important to them. Lots of plants that bloom early. I always tell the earliest ruby-throated hummingbird I've ever seen in Missouri was on April Fool's Day many years ago, like almost 25 years ago. And he was going up and licking the sap from an oozing tree that had a row of sapsucker holes in it, and it was oozing sap, and he was going up and licking the sap where he was getting his nutrition, because there was very little blooming that year on April Fool's Day, believe me. So he's one of those males that is risking arriving really early to try to get the best habitat, and sometimes that can backfire on him. So your goal with your hummingbirds is, if you want them all summer long, you want to get your feeder out now and keep it fresh, and any additional red color you can get out there, and that's potted plants or red Christmas bows, all those old tricks, and try to get that male to claim your yard and your feeder as his center of his territory, because what he will do when those females come in a week or two later, he will chase them around, he'll flirt with them, he'll dance for them. They do a big, bell-shaped dance. It's pretty cool. But he will attract a harem of females. He will have they document up to 8 or 9 females for one male, that he'll mate with all of those, and they will come in and try to feed at the feeder, and he'll chase them around. But if you are successful in getting a male to stake out your yard, you'll have them every day through at least the end of July. And you may have, in some years I have one male and 2 to 3 females at our feeders, and it's really fun. Last year was so odd with the really wet summer. I never did get any establishment. The only bird I saw, I kept seeing a female showing up, and I think she must have been on the exterior of a male's territory. She found my feeder room to come to. But that's what your goal is. And always remember that, you're going to put your feeder out now. If you don't, or you're not successful at attracting a male, and you don't have any birds coming regularly, and you're tired of changing that nectar, by, late May, I would clean out my hummingbird feeder, hang it out empty, if you're not willing to change it on a real regular basis. But always mark your calendars for the last week of July to put your hummingbird feeders back out, because that's when the babies are out, and you have a much better chance of getting hummingbirds at that time. So they've got some scattered reports around the area, so I would get my feeder out now. Well, another of the backyard arrival favorites are the Orioles, primarily the Baltimore Oriole on the right, this is a male Baltimore Oriole, and on the left is a male orchard Oriole. I call that a burnt orange and black versus the bright orange and black. They're slightly smaller than the Baltimores, but they like the grape jelly and the oranges just as well, and the sugar water. And this is a great time to go ahead and put out maybe some orange quarters right now, if you don't want to put jelly out just yet, or sugar water, if you don't want to change your sugar water. Orange quarters or orange halves are great to put out right now, because they last a lot longer, and they really like them. The citrus is good for them. So you can stab a few on tree limbs, or have friends who tack in a few finishing nails along their deck railing and stab the oranges on those, the orange halves and orange quarters on those, so they until they see them. And then when they see them coming, then they put out the jelly out pretty quickly. So now, again, these are both males. this is, and it's not as easy as some field guides would lead you to believe, but I think this is a female. It could possibly be a subadult male, but they, obviously they don't have the dark black head. Yes, Carrie, this is your picture. And I think Brian, that's your picture. The other one. So these are, you're going to see several of these along with the male, the beautiful males, and the males can vary with their coloration too, from a really gorgeous bright orange to a lighter orange. But they'll be coming in, and they're usually just behind the hummingbirds. I've had years where they actually beat my hummingbird to the yard. So they time their arrival a lot of times with the blooming of certain plants. In our area, the black locust trees, and whenever they're in full bloom, whenever the Orioles arrive, then we tend to get less activity at our feeders than we do in years whenever blooming's late. And so when the Orioles arrive, there's not a lot of blooming for them, and they come to feeders out of necessity more. Whereas if nature's producing for them, we have less attendance in our backyard, and that's disappointing to us. So, but we call the grape jelly the crack cocaine of the Oriole world, because they do seem to get attached to that grape jelly. So that and remember, a good question was asked the other night about the grape jelly. We do recommend and jellies that don't have the high fructose corn syrup for the health of the birds. So if you can, get low sugar jellies and jellies that contain real fruit in it, like real grapes. So now the orchard Oriole is a bit more confusing, or maybe not confusing. I don't know. The female of the orchard Oriole is really a very, very yellow all over, and she's very easy to tell from the male orchard Oriole. They have the same bill and same body size, and by the time they come into the jelly or to your oranges, it kind of jumps out at you. But to add more confusion to the orchard Oriole syndrome is the first year males, the subadult males, the first year of life. When they come into your jelly, they look like this. So they have the coloration of a female, but they have this black throat. And I guarantee you, early bird watchers, people who are getting started bird watching and really want, this bird throws everybody for a loop. I mean to tell you, they will. We get calls on this, and they'll come in with their field guide, and they think it's a black-throated green warbler and all kind of other birds, because a lot of, especially simple field guides, don't show this color. They show the adult males, and some of them show the female, but a lot of field guides don't include a picture of this bird, and they do come in. They come to the feeder. So this is a first-year male orchard Oriole. So don't let him throw you for a loop when you see him at your feeders. Now, the longer we've been putting out the grape jelly, the more birds that we have coming to that, and they come into the spring. This is a male summer tanager, 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 and in some years, they nest back in the woods behind our house, and in some years, when the Orioles aren't as numerous, we have more summer tanagers coming to our feeders than we do the Baltimore Oriole. So. But again, the term sexual dimorphism means different coloration, different appearances to the two sexes. Another bird that's a classic example of that. This is the female summer tanager. Now you see those bills are the same, but the females are this beautiful yellow, and the males are that beautiful red. So, but they are the same bird. So that can confuse people. And I wish I'd have thrown a picture in here, but the first year males, the subadult males, we call them, of the summer tanager, we call them mustard and ketchup birds, because they have blotches of yellow. They were yellow in their first year of life, and they're molting into their red plumage, their adult plumage, so some of them are real blotchy looking, red and yellow, funny looking birds. I love that term, mustard and ketchup bird. I think it's very, very fitting for it. Other birds that frequent the jelly, this is a gray catbird, related to the mockingbirds. They are mimics, and yes, they are named for that sound that they make. It depends on your yard. Ruth has a lot of them that visit her jelly feeders. These birds, and people don't understand why they can't get them in their backyards. Well, catbirds are birds of brambles and thickets. They like really thick underbrush. So if you're like me, the previous homeowner here cleared out all the underbrush in the woods back behind our house, and we've been here now. I've not touched a thing back there hardly since I've been here, so it's starting to get enough undergrowth back there that I'm hoping to get catbirds coming into our house eventually. But they like briar thickets and tangled underbrush, and just good shrubbery, good landscaping will get you catbirds. I always say, people say, well, I cleared out all that snaky looking stuff. Well, you cleared out the stuff that the catbirds love. So, and another of that same group, the mimic thrushes, this is a brown thrasher eating grape jelly. Got all kind of grape jelly in his bill there. I don't know if you can see that or not, but this is a sizable bird. It's bigger than the catbird. It's dark yellow eye, beautiful. And they scratch around in the leaves underneath your landscaping. But yes, they can be drawn into grape jelly, and they're beautiful songsters. Like I said, these two are related to mockingbirds. Now, mockingbirds are the ultimate in songsters. They are the ultimate mimic thrush. But these two are very good too. The way you tell a brown thrasher is we like to say they're doubly repetitive. They do their calls. They do everything twice. They tend, Peter, wada, whatever they're saying, they're going to do it. They do it twice. So that's a great way to tell the brown thrasher when it's singing in your yard or in your area. So now, there are more spring arrivals everybody's looking forward to. These coming a little bit later than those that we just had. The rose-breasted grosbeak. This is a male. Absolutely beautiful bird. It's related to the cardinals. The cardinal is just a red grosbeak, but you can tell by that size of that bill. In general body shape, they are related to our cardinals, and people love it when these come into the feeders. They love sunflower and safflower, just like your cardinals do. And some years they are very plentiful at feeders, and in some years they're fairly scarce. And some of that's wind patterns. And some of it's just natural food availability when they get here. If everybody remembers the Easter freeze from several years ago, we had that terrible long stretch of sub-freezing temperatures right around Easter, and it killed all the blooms on the trees. That year, we were just hoarded with Orioles and rose-breasted grosbeaks at the feeders. They were all starving, and that freeze, was the cause of that. But in a year, my saying has always been, if it's good for the bird watchers, then it's probably not very good for the birds, and vice versa. So this winter was a great example of that. We had a lot of natural food, so bird feeders were pretty disappointing. And spring migration is no different. It just depends on the vegetation state whenever these birds are passing through the area. We do have nesting rose-breasted grosbeaks in the area. Places like Weston Bend and some of the bigger patches of woods. You may have them in your backyard nesting as possible, but the further north you go, the more likely you are to find nesting rose-breasted grosbeaks. We had a vacation one year up in Wisconsin, and when I got up and bird hiked every morning, and man, I couldn't believe the number of rose-breasted grosbeaks that were singing in that campground where we were staying for that week. A lot of rose-breasted grosbeaks up there. Now this bird, you're talking about sexual dimorphism. The females look a lot different, and so this really throws people too in spring migration when they look out there. And the male is unmistakable, but all of a sudden they see this big sparrow, and that's exactly what they look like. The females look like just a big dark sparrow, maybe a big dark purple finch is what a lot of people reminds them of because of that white stripe through the eye and the malar stripe. But they will be mixed in with the males. They're just the same size as the males. They have that big, huge beak, and that's the giveaway. Also, subadult males will look like this too, so you can't exactly say female from the subadult male sometimes. And you'll see birds that are molting when they get here. You'll see a male that looks a lot like the female, but he'll have black coming in and reddish in the chest, and so kind of an in-between bird too. But they generally start arriving the last week of April. And then you have them for a couple of weeks. And then once they start nesting, they do not come back to feeders. I wish I could get them to feed at feeders all summer, but they once they start feeding their young, then they don't come to bird feeders, hardly ever. So we always look forward to them. And of course, the indigo bunting, another of the spring favorite arrivals. This is a male, beautiful adult male. And they start arriving about the same time the rose-breasted grosbeaks do. Now, they feed a lot with the, at least in my experience, at my house, they usually feed with the finches. So I look out there one morning and there'll be gold, gold, blue, gold on my finch feeders. And absolutely stunning birds. But they'll eat sunflower, they'll eat Niger, they'll eat sunflower chips, they'll eat millet. John Burt will always put out a millet feeder for them in his yard every year, just specifically to get to get the indigo buntings coming to eat the millet. So they will eat eat that as well. This is probably a subadult male, but the female, I threw this in here because I don't have a really good picture of a female Brian or Mary or whoever got a picture. I need Carrie. Come on, but this is late summer, and probably a subadult male. But the females are brown like this. It's very different from the adult males. But we do see a lot of these. Especially in early spring, this is an adult male that still has some of the subadult feathering. He hasn't completely finished molting yet. So you see those patches on his back, and some of them can be very blotchy. Some of them can be like this one, which is mostly through molting yet. And you see this one's on a Niger feeder here. So you can look for all that. And again, some years we don't get them come to the feeders very much, and some years we have just good numbers of them reported all over. I know there's already been a couple of sightings of male indigo buntings photographed north of the Missouri River this year. So there's some early birds in the area. So keep your feeders filled and looking out for them. All right, where are we going next? Oh, I love this one. This is something that I've been teaching for years, and that is, my goldfinches are back. Oh, they never left. The truth is we have more goldfinches here in winter than we do in summer. Because we're a winter destination for northern birds, because their world gets covered in snow and ice up in the Dakotas and Nebraska, and the points to the north. So we get a lot of those birds all winter, and in the spring, like mine have already left. I'm down to probably 10 or 15 goldfinches in my yard right now, but they're all looking pretty close to this right now. Whereas just a few weeks ago, they looked like this. Yes, they're the only bird, well, not the only, one of the only birds we know that does 2 complete molts a year, and that is in spring and in fall, they completely replace every feather in their body. They do it slowly, as we're seeing now with the blotchy goldfinches now. The males are transitioning. If you were that bright yellow in winter, yes, you would get dined on by hawks and things. And so they have to molt to look more like the females, so they'll be duller in the landscape and won't stand out as much. And that confuses a lot of people. People don't realize that they think these bright yellow birds leave and those bright yellow birds return. But nope, that's the natural molting process of the goldfinch, one of America's favorite birds. And they are here. And now the interesting thing about them is, another one is that they're one of they probably are our latest nesting songbird. They will not start their nesting cycle until July. So they will be in flocks coming to your feeders off and on with natural food sources all the way up until July. And then the females will completely disappear for a while, and they're out nesting. And then in the fall, in August, they'll return and they'll bring these little green birds with them. And the green birds are the young ones, the hatchlings. They're like the female on the right, that color, but more greenish. And so you'll have 3 different looking birds in the fall. But note, they do not leave. They just molt. And then, we have grassland arrivals. If you're out and you live in the farmland, we always look forward to a lot of arrivals in every type of habitat. We have our backyards, but we have the grasslands, like the bobolinks here on the fence. A beautiful bird of open grasslands. Eastern kingbird should be back at any minute. I saw pictures. Rodney posted pictures of some scissortail flycatchers on a power line today. The first he's seen of the season, so he's they're starting to arrive. So the things like kingbirds and flycatchers, and this is a cliff swallow, the grass open area birds, and they're all starting to come in, and we look forward to that. I mean, just so entertaining. And the dickcissel, yes, that is a funny name. That bird used to be called black chin bunting, but its name was changed because of the sound that it makes, and they named it after what people believed it sounded like. I don't think it sounds like dickcissel personally, but that is a unique bird to the center part of our country, very much dependent on our native grasslands in the area. It's a beautiful, beautiful bird, the dickcissel. And then our woodland arrivals, and this is the season that bird watchers live for, and that is the warbler migration. And then there's lots of other birds, not just warblers, but warblers are called the butterflies of the bird world. They're small, they're flitty, they're beautiful, and they have pretty songs, and most of them just migrate through our area. Some do nest, and believe it or not, folks, we have people that come from all over the world to be here in the first week or 10 days of spring every year, of May, just for this migration. British birders love to come here for the spring warbler migration. They love our warblers. There are warblers in the old world, but most of those are very nondescript songsters. They sit in the hide in the bushes and they make pretty songs, where our warblers are showy and just beautiful to see. And so when we're out bird watching, and especially our Thursday morning hikes and our Mother's Day hike, this is the group of birds we always look forward to their arrival back in the area, and we love seeing them. This is a hooded warbler. You have these were nesting out at Weston Bend at one point, and I think that's where this picture actually came from. Out there, we haven't been able to find them nesting in the last few years, but there's lots of members of the warbler family. The black and white warbler, aptly named, acts like a nuthatch, clings to trees and clings to the sides of limbs and things like that. It's a beautiful bird that scurries up and down the tree. This is a mourning warbler, a name for the black band that you can just barely see here, where the gray hood meets the yellow. There's a black band there, and it's the mourning band is what it was named for. Beautiful shot out at Weston Bend a few years ago. And probably the most common of all the wood warblers in North America is the yellow warbler. These can nest in your yard, or especially if you have willows. They love willows around if you have a pond or a sewage settlement pond, things like that, where it's willow growth. The yellow warblers are just beautiful little birds that dance around in there.
Brian Voorhees says that a female indigo bunting photo in your email inbox.
All right, thank you, Ryan. I have a good female indigo bunting picture now. All right, more of the wood warblers. The American redstart. Again, kind of looks like a small Baltimore Oriole. Not as much orange on it, but these are super common birds out at Weston Bend State Park. If you take the bicycle trail and walk that first mile or so of it, usually you can find redstarts dancing around in the trees around you. Beautiful little birds. And remember, all of these are catching bugs. Well, these are our nature's exterminators. This is a chestnut-sided warbler. Another that we love. It's a kind of a mid-story bird. Maybe not as hard to see as some of the other birds because it tends to like being down lower in the trees. Oh, remember that summer tanager I showed you earlier that come to your jelly and your oranges? This is the scarlet tanager, a stunning bird of oak woodlands, mixed hardwood woodlands, and they will occasionally come to your jelly or to your oranges. Has anybody out there ever had a scarlet tanager at your feeder? I would love to know that. That color of red is very, very hard to capture in a photograph. It is a luminescent red, and the jet black wings and tail. It's just a beautiful, beautiful bird. We look forward to seeing that bird every year. I think this is Carrie's favorite bird. the yellow-billed cuckoo. Again, people think that cuckoos are just in clocks and that they're mythical birds, but they really do exist. It's a very large, widespread family of birds on the planet. And we do have a few species. It's basically two that occur here in Missouri. And the yellow-billed is by far the most common one. It's a woodland cuckoo that we see and hear. They make a really funny tropical sound and people call them rain crows. I mean, when you hear them call, it's supposed to rain. Now, I don't think that ever holds up very well, but they're great birds. And the most beautiful songster of them all, in my opinion, this is the wood thrush. And this is a bird that sounds very much like a beautiful flute notes song, and we look forward to hearing it every year and seeing it when we can. They obviously they're birds of the underbrush and hop around, but in the spring when they're singing, the males will get up like this and exposed to where they sing for the females, and we catch glimpses of them. But very much a song of spring that all bird watchers love to hear. And then we have, of course, wetland migration. You know, everybody loves seeing the pelicans when they're coming through. They winter down in the Gulf Coast states and then head for the prairie potholes of this country for nesting. The American white pelican, and they can fly and fly for miles and miles without ever flapping their wings. They're amazing creatures of flight, and we love seeing them. These are males. They have the keel on their bill during the nesting season. They attract the females, so that's what that keel is on the top of those bills there. And birds like the great egret. These have been coming through here in the last week in wetland areas. We didn't see one at Cooley. I think the water may be a little too high for them out there, but I think Mary was telling me she had 25 or more of them up at Les Bluffs the other day. So the people call them cranes and lots of different names, but this is officially a great egret is their name. The Wilson's phalaropes. This is a little shorebird that is so unique in that because the females are more attractive than males. Some of the very few birds on the planet in which the female and they do have role reversals. The males take care of the young, and the females do most of the hunting and gathering. And we see them by groups of several hundred of them at a time, and in big wetland areas, and they'll be spinning like tops in the water, churning up the vegetation and the dirt and prey underneath them, and then they can dip down with that fine bill and pick out the food. It's funny to see a pool of hundreds of them with all of them spinning like tops. So it's quite a fun sight to see. And then a lot of our ducks, not as many ducks that nest here, but one of the things we look forward to is their changing of color. They're molting. The ruddy duck, this is and some people call them bluebills, but the ruddy duck in winter is very much just light and dark gray, and very uncolorful, where now in spring it has molted this rich chestnut back and the black on the head and the bluebill. This is all breeding attire for that male to attract the female. So that's something we look forward to in the spring. And a very beautiful American avocet, another bird of a really unusual looking shorebird that wades around and takes that recurved bill and sifting it through the water and picking up little food items down in there. So it's a wonderful spring migrant through here. So how can you help? Everybody wants to be a part of the helping these birds. And one of the largest, you can't do anything about guy wires on a cell phone tower, but you can keep your cats indoors. I love this picture because it truly illustrates someone doing it the right way. They've got a bird feeder right there, and the cats are inside looking out, and that's the way it should be. Cats account for millions and millions of bird deaths per year. And I saw someone wrote something on the internet the other day that the cat had brought him a present, a bird that it had caught, and she was able to let it go. But most birds that have been caught by a cat die. Mortality rate is extremely high on them because cats have very long fangs and they have very, very dirty mouths. And so even if the bird does escape them, a lot of times that puncture wound gets infected and the birds die. So cats indoors is a very, very important campaign, and not letting your cats roam free. And I know people say, well, my cat's old, it's never caught a bird. Almost all cats catch birds at some point, and a lot of them catch a lot of them. So please, that's one thing you can do to help birds, especially in migration season. And last night, at my son's work, he had a brown thrasher that had hit the window at where he works, and luckily it was only stunned, and it did fly off. But window reflections, dirty windows are good for birds, as we say, because the problem that we're having, and it's huge in cities, is that all of these windows, and we're studying this very extensively now, especially windows that face certain directions, are getting, they get this reflection of the forest or the trees that are right by your house, and the birds come flying along, they see the reflection in your windows, they think they're going to fly into a tree, and they hit your window at full speed and break their necks. It's very sad, and they're just incredible numbers of bird strikes per year. And there's a lot of smart people working on solutions to try to help with this. But remember, you've got to break up the reflection on the outside of your house. And this is just one example of some of these stickers that you can get to go on your window. We can see through them, like on the image on the left, but they have chemicals in them that have ultraviolet chemicals in them, so the birds can see them. They glow more like on the right to the birds than to us. So they don't look like that to you on the right. That looks like to the birds, and helps them keep from striking windows. Water is probably the single most important thing you can provide for migrating birds, especially moving water. Because when they land, and they can start gleaning insects from tree leaves and things, but finding unfrozen water and clean water is important to them. And a bubbling or gurgling or cascading water sounds really, really are like magnets to migrating birds. And so a good water feature or a maintained bird bath, especially close to cover, are good for a lot of these migrating birds. Ruth has an incredible yard list where she's lots of different warblers have visited hers. Mine's pretty lame compared to hers, but I have had yellow warblers bathing in my pools and things. So providing a good, dependable water source during migration is really, really important. So, my fat fingers hit a bad button there. Hold on. All right, now that's not what I want. I am going to manually get to where I should be. I was down to like 2 slides, folks. Now, landscaping is the message here. And landscaping is native landscaping especially. And when you're landscaping with native plants, you are producing insects for these birds that need it, and that is migrating birds, and it is also for your nesting birds. Grownative.org is a great site to go to learn more about what will grow in your yard and what you should be planting. And this book on the right by Doug Tallamy is to me just an amazing book on how important it is to provide for native wildlife, especially birds, through your landscaping. So, believe it or not, that was my next to the last slide whenever I bumped that. So, is there any questions? You guys have been pretty quiet over here. I couldn't have covered it that well.
I haven't had any questions.
Is my producer falling down on the job?
I'm not.
She claims that she's not. Sorry. All right. Well.
Why don't you run over like the store hours and stuff?
All right. Can you tell me if I'm in the camera?
No, I'll come do it. You're almost there. And look down.
I gotta look down.
Not that far.
Oh, look down. No. All right.
That's good.
Thank you for joining in. I mean, if this is something you'd like me to do more of, but let me know. And on potential topics you'd like to see me cover, we can do lots of different things. But the store is still going. We're going from 10 to 2 every day and 10 to 4 tomorrow on Saturday.
Closed Sunday for Easter.
We are closed Sunday for Easter. That's right. If everybody has a good and safe Easter.
But back 10 to 2 on Monday.
And then back to 10 to 2 on Monday. The online store, Shop Backyard Bird Center, has definitely picked up. We really appreciate you supporting us through that way. And don't forget, we're doing the deliveries now on Wednesday and possibly Thursday. We have enough orders. Shelly True will be delivering for us again. She ordered, I think, 3 or 4 deliveries on this Wednesday, and it went real well. So we want to, like I said, we want to be safe. We want you to be safe. We want to keep providing for you. The curbside work is working great. Just give us a call. You can bring a check when you come. You can pay with a credit card. But don't forget, we got lots of other stuff in the store. It's not just birdseed. We not only did a thing about puzzles the other day, and we sold a bunch of puzzles. So, we've got the wind chimes. I know a lot
garden
of stuff.
flags.
Listen to her. Garden flags.
And the kids' items.
I can hear Joyce saying that from here.
I know, that's why I said that. And now you've got a cute couple comments. So,
right.
Carrie says that they were quiet as they were catching everything that you were saying. That's why they weren't asking questions.
Yeah, I do talk a lot. You're
And
right.
then, let's see. Oh, wait a minute. I'm going to have to get my phone. Sorry. Hold on a second.
It's hard to read it on this little phone, but
Yeah.
Ellie's got her iPad over there, so she can read
Okay,
the questions.
so Beth Branch, fantastic program. Carrie, great information. Brian Voorhees, well done, do more. They should send us ideas on what they want classes on.
Yeah, like I said, I went through and I've got some programs that I've done forever. I've done them for garden clubs and different groups, and so I have them on raptors and sparrows and beginning bird watching and nesting and attracting bluebirds. There's lots of different programs I've done, but I'd like to know what you guys are interested in to hear me talk about, because I'd love to be able to do that for you.
And the very next comment from Robin is, would love one on IDing bird calls.
Oh, good. That's one. Thank you for that. I've actually been working on that. I've been trying to record some bird songs here in the yard, and so I can put them together into a nice little program. We will put that together. We will. Hopefully, we can get this.
Here's your pen and paper
This
so you can
program
write it
working
down.
back. But bird songs are fun, and what we'll do is we'll start with some of the most classic bird songs and the more familiar ones, and hopefully we can build on a library, help you build on a library of knowledge of songs by then. But I do like that idea.
Okay, more comments. So Beth said, remind everyone about getting their live mealworms.
Oh, right. We've got we did a poll. Melanie created a little survey to see how many people would be interested in buying live mealworms, so we could order them safely, because these are live animals and we take that pretty seriously. We don't want to bring in a bunch of live mealworms and they go bad because we're not selling them. So we put in an order today, and it should be here. They won't be here till Tuesday.
They'll be here Tuesday. We ordered 24 and we already have 17 spoken for.
Yeah. So that was pretty good. We had 24 on order and 17 are already spoken for. So,
but we'll do it again.
We can do it. This is a good indication. We'll be able to, because this is just getting started in the bluebird nesting season, and that's when most people want to feed their bluebirds the live mealworms. That's when I put them out for mine. So it looks like we'll be able to order live mealworms again. So yeah, let you know. We'll probably have 5 or 6, 7 more left over from whenever everybody picks up this batch. So we do have some more, and live mealworms are so fun to feed your bluebirds and watch them to carry them back to their nest. And it's funny whenever the fledglings leave the nest and they come to that live mealworm bowl, and the parents are teaching them how to pick up the live mealworms. It is a hoot to watch. It really is really fun and entertaining.
Okay, so we have some more comments. That Carrie says that you should remind people to pay with checks, supporting their local business. So, thank you, Carrie.
Thank you, Carrie. Yes, checks and cash are always better than credit cards.
I always say cash is king.
But yeah, okay. but it's what's easiest for you.
Exactly.
So yeah, we welcome the support, but thank you, Carrie, for plugging that.
Okay, Brian said, any recommendation on online migration tracking resources?
Yeah, I think the one that online migration tracking, I like journeynorth.org. I've been checking that fairly regularly. Now they tried one of the things that happens when a site that tries to do a lot. They do monarchs and all kinds of things on their site, whereas some like purplemartin.net or purplemartin.org, there's several. If you just type in, Oriole migration, it'll give you 2 or 3 different sources, and not everybody reports to every site, so you'll get different sightings on different ones. So one site might have a sighting a week or 2 earlier than the other ones because that's where that person reported it to. So
maybe we could try to post some of those in the comments after you're done.
Yeah, we can try to get you some links sent there to check on.
Okay, Robin asked, how much are the mealworms and how do you feed them?
Okay, these mealworms are live, and they come basically from the fishing industry. Is where this got started, and these are not night crawlers. These are not big, long, red wiggler earthworms that you crawl across your driveway after a rain. These are dry mealworms, and they have legs, and we keep them refrigerated, and it keeps them in a state of suspended, basically, animation, and they're in a bed of oatmeal or meal that they keep in the and they live in there in your refrigerator, nice and cool, and then you bring them out and you place them in either glass or some type of plastic slick container, because they can crawl out once they warm up. Once the temperature rises outside, they start to wiggle around and move, and that's what the bluebirds are attracted to, is that movement of them crawling around in your bowl. So an open Pyrex dish type thing that they can't crawl up and out of. The Vistadome, the Aspic Vistadome, is the #1 selling feeder for us forever. It has an adjustable hood on it, so you can lower the hood to keep the larger birds like robins from getting in there. But birds, a lot of birds love moving insects, and those chickadees and Carolina wrens, but the bluebirds get very possessive of the feeder once you get it set up. I do not recommend putting that feeder too close to your birdhouse, because other birds coming in to get those mealworms will drive the male bluebird crazy and the female. So what I tend to do is I tend to stake it on a little stake, shepherd's hook, a small shepherd's hook, about 25, 30 feet away from my bluebird house, and I can actually move that. Once those bluebirds locate those live mealworms, I can bring that feeder in closer and closer to my deck, and then I can hang it on my deck arm. Those bluebirds will follow those live mealworms wherever you take it. And when you feed them, it's up to you how many you want to give them. I usually put out about 30 a day. I know some people feed a lot more. I had a customer a few years ago said he wanted to see how many they would eat at one time. So he bought a whole container in his dish on his yard and on his deck, and was sitting there, and he had a clicker, and he was clicking. And when his wife opened the door and flushed the male bluebird off of the mealworm feeder, he had eaten 56 of them. So he was stuffing them in, believe me. So, and they're not very big. These mealworms are small. I know they're larger mealworms called superworms. We tried them a few years ago, and most people reported that the birds kind of were scared of them, is what they thought, because they just didn't eat any of them. So we like the smaller ones.
So they come in 500 cups, like a little yogurt cup.
That's
type
right.
Jar.
And kind of a large yogurt cup and they're 500, and they're roughly 500, and they're
$11.99.
$11.99. Now they do it by weight. So if you were to pick out every single mealworm out of that container and count them, and it came up to 496, I'm sorry, because they can't sit there and count them individually. They have to do it by weight, and they put it in there. So that's what that is.
Okay, one more program idea, and it's from Beth, and she says a program to ID nests.
That is a very hard thing, Beth. People think nests are easy, but nests are very, very hard to ID.
Maybe we could do some of the nests that you would have in your yard.
Yeah, I would probably be able to. We could probably do that on some. I know I've got several pictures people have taken over the years on ones that I know. but and especially ones that are more common to your yard, like the difference between a bluebird nest and a house sparrow nest in your bluebird box.
The robin's nest.
And the robin's nest. We can take the most common ones, but the nests out in nature are many and they're varied and quite hard to ID. But we'll try to do something on a limited basis, and also some egg identification.
A lot of people are saying, "Thank you, Mark. You're so knowledgeable and willing to share. Thank you, thank you."
Thank you. I really do appreciate it. I mean, this is the love of my life, man. My family, but when it comes to my profession, the reason I own the Backyard Bird Center is not because we just love selling birdseed. I love to educate people about the natural world, and of course, birds are the center of that for me. And I love passing along that knowledge. I always said it on my bird hikes. What I love the most is that high five moment when somebody sees a new bird for the first time, and that light bulb goes on, and it's that, wow, God, that's beautiful, and we all get to high five the group. And I think most bird watchers are that way. So we love increasing your knowledge. We love you appreciating the natural world even more. So thank you for tuning in. We will do more of those. And is that everybody?
Yeah, we're at 55 minutes, so this is perfect.
Good timing. Hey, how did I do that? 55 minutes. I'm almost always running too late.
No, we didn't want to go over an hour.
That's right. So again, thank you. And again, if you think of something after we get out, just put it in the comment section. Share this with people who couldn't be on tonight. That helps us out a lot. One of our customers gave us a really great review today on Facebook. Those Facebook reviews, those Google reviews, they really do help us. So if you think about that, you get time to leave us one of those, that would really help us out as a small business. So thanks so much for your support. We'll see you next time.